Okay, let's build this in Visual Studio. So the first thing we're going to do is close that. Let's open up Visual Studio. Okay, create new project, console app. Here we're just going to say quick find. We'll do it as a, okay. And where do we want it? Let's put it on the desktop and then say create. Okay, so we are going to basically work on here. We don't need any of this stuff. We're going to change all this. So this one is going to be the quick find, contains the quick find algorithm. Okay, that's it. We don't need any of that stuff. In our we're not doing C++, so we want standard io.h at least. In the code that you're given, you have number of items. N is 10,000 in this case. We don't need to go with it, but let's just start with the code that we have. All right. So in main, we have my CCleaner. It's okay. We'll deal with that later. Update we'll look at later. Okay. So go into main, and we have int I. We have for our loop, we have p and q. Okay, are the two elements that we're looking for. T is a temporary variable, and set ID. This is the array that's going to carry everything. Okay, so now what's next? Let's open it up here. Okay, so we got to initialize all of the items. Okay, because it's a quick find. Everything is there's two levels. There's the parent, and then there's all the children that belong to that parent. So if you remember, what we want to do here is we need to initialize everything so that it's in its own set, right? So every object is part of its own set. So I less than n, and then I plus plus or plus plus I, doesn't matter in this case. Okay, so here's our for loop. What we need to do here is pretty simple. We could put it as a one-line for loop, but I like to put everything so it's easy to understand. Okay, so in this for loop, we're going to go set ID, okay, of at index I to be equal to I. Okay, so this, if we want to write it down, is to initialize all objects so they are part of their own set, right? Okay, so that's the initialization. Now we have a while loop. Okay, so we have our while loop, and this is going to take input. Okay, so scanf. Okay, and then we're going to say percent d, taking in two numbers, %d, %d. Okay, and they're going to be stored, right? P and at q, and while there's two inputs, okay, and then open, and we go into our while loop. So in here, what we need to do is we need to say, okay, if P and Q are already, right, in the same set, then we don't have to do anything, right? But if they are in different sets, then we have to set the address of P and put it into, make it the address of Q. Okay, so we say if, okay, what's stored at set ID of P, the value that's stored there, is equal to the set ID at Q, Okay, if that's true, then this is a one-line if. We could do this. Just continue. Basically, go back to the top of the while loop and go to the next, get the next input, because we don't have to do anything, right? So this is the find operation, and what we're doing here is if p, right? What's stored at p? So the set at index p is the same, right, as the set at index q, then do nothing. Right? They are already part of the same set. So it's not do nothing, just, well, do nothing, get another input, right? Basically, that's what we're doing. We're not doing anything. We're going back to the top to get some. However, if p and q are not part of the same set, okay, so here I have a temporary variable. So in the code that you're given, we have this temporary set ID. Okay, we don't need to do this necessarily, but we'll just do it. So now, this part is, you know what I should do is just put this. Let's copy this. Let's just put it over here, right? There we go. And then here is the union, right? This is what we're doing here is union, right? So if p and q are not, right? If the set at index p is not the same as the set at index q, then now what we're doing is we're making the set ID at p equal to what's at q. It looks like, yeah, okay. So then make the set at p equal to that at q. That at q. Okay. So that's the idea. Okay, because we're going with the second number. P is the first number in our set. Q is the second number. We're going to make p equal to q. Okay, we're going to put p in q's set. Make the union of p and q, but we're going to choose q as the parent of the set. Okay, so we have p as the temporary variable. So basically what we're going to do is we have to go through the entire set and look for p. Okay, so so we have to we start at 0. This is our counter. Okay, I less than n, and then I plus plus, and we're going through, right? So here what we're going to do is I can explain here. So it's go through array and change all members of the set p to become members of the set q. Okay, that's basically what we're doing. So what we're saying is if we find anyone, set ID, we're going through the array, and if we find anything that's the same as p, right, then we're going to set it equal to q. Okay, I can open it up here. Then set ID at I, right, equals set ID at q. Okay, so that's basically, we're changing it to, anytime we find p, we're changing it to q. By the way, we do this because then it prevents us from having to do an array lookup every single time. That's why we have this temporary variable. You don't actually need it. If you want, you can just, wherever you see t, you can replace it with set ID of p. Okay, if that makes more sense to you. But it prevents having to go through an array lookup. Okay, and then basically, if you made the connection, if you get to this point, right, if you have to make any connection, then we're going to have an output, right, that we made the connection. So we're saying printf, and then we say here is %d, percent %d, and basically what we're saying is we made this connection here, and then p, and then q. Okay, and then we return. We need to get out of the while loop. Okay, where are we here? Get out of the while loop and return at the end of main. You can return whatever you like. I'm going to return 0. Control S. Okay, so now let's try to run it. What's going on with main? Main exceeds the stack. Consider moving some data to the heap. Interesting. Let's see what happens here. Why is it using too much? Okay, let's try making n 100 for now. Let's do that just for now, because I need that anyway. Oh, okay. Well, that does it. Okay, so let's just go with that, because we're not going to have that many connections. Even if we went with like 25, let's say, okay, that would be okay. That would be enough, because we start to see more of the connection, easier to work with, basically. Okay, so let's do this. Let's run this and start making some connections. Right? Okay, we have some build errors. Great. So now we're learning how to debug. Would you like to continue? No. I want to see what these errors are. We're always going to run into something, right? So let's see. It says, okay, so quick find. It says quick find 2114. So we go to 21 and then go to 14, line 4. It's an equal sign. It tells you right here, right? Warning. You're checking to see, right? But I wanted an assignment, so I made a mistake. I just noticed it, and that's it. So that's there. The other problem here, we have Scanf. Okay, this is so Scanf in C, well, in Windows C and Visual Studio, they think it's unsafe. Okay, so we could use the scanf_s. Okay, so we could do that, or we could disable this error. Okay, so there's really two options. Okay, when we use so the reason for scanf being unsafe is it doesn't have a limit. I just noticed this. It doesn't have. It doesn't say how many characters you're going to input. What's the maximum? So you can get these buffer overflows. So they prefer that you use scanf_s. However, if I want to run that in Linux, there's no guarantee that the compiler that I use is going to have that. But I'm pretty much guaranteed that it's going to have scanf. So I'm going to show you a couple ways as we go. If you see, I'll show you different ways of doing it. But today what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to disable this error, okay, 4996. And how do I do that? Well, what I'm going to do is go up to the top and just go pragma, okay, warning, okay, and then disable, and then space 4996, okay, and Control S to save, and now we should not have any more errors. Okay, so it should ask us now what we for some inputs. Actually, I didn't put any requests from it. It said just start putting in numbers. So okay, so let's go. We're gonna join 1 and 2. Okay, join 2 and 3. Okay, they're connected. Then we're gonna join 3 and 4, and then I'm gonna try to join 1 and 4. What happens? Nothing, right? Because I connected 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 1 to 4. There's no output. So it is working as we expect. Okay. Let's keep entering. I don't know. Let's say 5 and 6, right? But we haven't connected 4 to 5. 4 to 5. They are now connected, and now I go 1 and 6, and there should be no output. Okay. So this is basically how we're going to run it. It's just a basic program. If you wanted to put the usage, and I'll leave that for you to put in on your own. So Control Z or Control C actually will close. You can close it this way too at the top. Okay, so that's it for this first one. This is a quick find. Okay, and I hope you understood and learned a little bit from this short video.